Have you ever stopped to reflect on the last digit of the year you were born? Not the year in its entirety, nor the month or the day, but just that final number. It is the concluding note of your birth year, like the last beat of a drum heralding your entrance into this world. At first it seems inconsequential, a number you have likely written down countless times on forms, documents, and in memories, without ever giving it a second thought. However, in the symbolic reality of the soul, what seems insignificant can carry profound weight. That single number could possess a hidden resonance, a vibration that sends echoes through the framework of your psyche, subtly influencing your emotional inclinations, your existential wonderings, and your very connection to time. Carl Jung, the founder of analytical psychology, taught that nothing in life is arbitrary, including the very moment we are born. According to Jung, the cosmos communicates in symbols. It talks to us through myths, through dreams, and even through the language of numbers. These symbols constitute what he named archetypes, primordial patterns that influence the human experience across all cultures and historical periods. They are more than just tales. They are energetic imprints embedded in all things, including time itself. To Jung, time was not simply a succession of hours or dates. It was a living entity with a psychological essence. The era we are born into, the cultural environment, the collective consciousness of a decade, all of it impresses a symbolic stamp on the soul. We are born into more than a physical body. We are born into an atmosphere charged with meaning. And that final digit of your birth year is like a symbolic fingerprint, a subtle hint. What if that number, whether it is a 1, a 5, a 9, or a 0, carries a specific tone that is uniquely aligned with your soul's rhythm? This isn't about superstition or rigid labels. Jung was never focused on telling people who they were with inflexible definitions. He was interested in awakening the parts of us we have overlooked and helping us comprehend how the unconscious impacts the conscious and how patterns silently mold our lives. And numbers, when seen symbolically, can act as portals into those patterns. Consider it this way. 0 isn't merely a placeholder. It is a symbol of the great void, of boundless potential, of spiritual origins. 1 isn't just a beginning. It's the archetype of the pioneer, the individual who carves their own path to forge an identity. Every digit, 2, 3, 4, and so on, possesses its own mythical core. They appear in religious lore, folk traditions, and psychological motifs throughout history. So what could your final digit unveil? This inquiry is not intended to define you. It aims to provide a new lens, a mirror, a faint whisper from your deeper self. It is a summons to listen more attentively to the patterns that have always existed, to ask, what is the symbolic call of the era I was born into? And what has my soul been quietly in tune with from the very beginning? In the sections that follow, we will journey through each digit from 0 to 9 and delve into the archetypal significance it might hold. This is not fortune-telling or dogma, but rather a way toward inner discovery, toward remembering something vital that maybe you have always sensed but could never articulate. Take a deep breath and allow the number at the end of your birth year to be your guide into the symbolic, the soulful, and the forgotten dialect of meaning. What you are about to discover might do more than alter your perspective on a number. It could reshape how you perceive your life's cadence, your soul's evolving narrative, the seasons you have traversed, and the sacred rhythm that has brought you precisely to this point. Because this is not just about numbers, it is about resonance, about the symbolic impression you were born with, and about what the last digit of your birth year might uncover about your essence, your journey, and the unseen script your soul has been silently adhering to since the day you drew your first breath. Let's now enter Carl Jung's symbolic perception of time. To Jung, life was not haphazard. It was not a chaotic jumble of events, but an intricately patterned dance, a choreography directed by symbols, those enigmatic, universal images and energies that mold our psychology from the inside. Jung viewed symbols not as mere poetic embellishments or abstract concepts, but as living energies within the psyche, dynamic forces that affect how we feel, think, choose, love, and suffer. He observed that symbols recurred throughout time and across cultures in myths, rituals, and dreams. They were not coincidental, they were significant. They were messages from the unconscious, envoys from the soul's depths. And the more we heed these symbols, the more we can harmonize with the profound wisdom seeking to express itself through us. Now let's apply this symbolic perspective to something most of us ignore completely: numbers. In contemporary life, we regard numbers as sterile instruments, units for measurement, and tools for calculation. We seldom stop to contemplate their meaning beyond their utility. But for ancient civilizations and for Jung, numbers were never just about mathematics. They were animate and held power. Each number possessed a distinct energy, a unique vibration, a symbolic function in the grand saga of existence. From the zero that signified the cosmic abyss to the sacred triad of 3, or the transformative essence of 7, numbers were regarded as spiritual codes, archetypal blueprints. They appeared not just in holy scriptures, but also in dreams, visions, and mystical traditions across the globe. Jung adopted this symbolic outlook. He researched how numbers materialized in alchemical writings, how they emerged in dreams during periods of crisis, and how they signified deep psychological processes like union, conflict, transformation, and rebirth. For him, numbers did not foretell the future. They were mirrors of the soul's internal architecture, reflecting something already active within us. So let's circle back to your birth year. Your birth year is not merely a historical data point. It is a symbolic portal, a timestamp of the collective energy you came into. It contains the atmosphere of the world at that specific time. The culture, the anxieties, the aspirations, the archetypes that were most prominent in the human psyche. And at the conclusion of that year is a single digit, small perhaps, but potent. By the way, if you are interested in exploring even further to integrate your shadows and light, look into the Sim Method ebook. It's a succinct guide that can assist you in unlocking your inner power in just 5 minutes daily. The link can be found in the first pinned comment below. That last number is akin to the final note in a piece of music. It doesn't characterize the entire song, but it adds color to it. It establishes the emotional tone. It resonates like an echo that quietly hums beneath all that comes after. And what if that echo has been a part of you ever since? What if the last digit of your birth year carries a frequency with which your soul naturally resonates, not due to superstition, but because it came with you, like a seed planted in the soil of time, growing quietly under the surface of your decisions, your wounds, your aspirations, and your desires. In Jungian thinking, such a notion would not be unusual, it would be anticipated. Time to Jung was not vacant, it was rich with meaning. By examining your symbolic entry into time, your birth, we can gain insight into the archetypal energies that influenced your development. So as we start to investigate the digits from 0 to 9, don't consider this an exercise in labeling. Think of it as an act of listening. Regard each number as a whisper from your soul, providing a reflection of the energies you may have been carrying all this time, not as predestination, but as an invitation. Let's decipher the rhythm of your arrival. Let's hear what time might have been singing at the moment your soul came into the world. Let's use a straightforward example. Suppose you were born in 1984. That final digit, 4, carries a psychological resonance different from someone born just 5 years later, in 1989. While the 4 typically exudes structure, discipline, and a grounded energy, the 9 vibrates with the significance of endings, transitions, and profundity. One personality seeks to construct a solid foundation, piece by piece, while the other often finds itself at the crossroads between chapters, compelled by an impulse to let go and be reborn. You have probably noticed this distinction in people you know without ever verbalizing it. Some individuals feel like natural stabilizers, methodically creating order from chaos. Others seem to exist in cycles of deep closure and renewal, constantly shedding their old selves to evolve into something new. This is not happenstance. It is a pattern. It is a soul rhythm. Because while the final digit of your birth year is small, its symbolic frequency can ripple through your internal world in subtle yet profound ways. It can manifest in your talents, your yearnings, your internal conflicts, and even in the types of partnerships you form. So what does each number signify psychologically and symbolically? That is what we are about to delve into. In the upcoming sections, we will journey together through each final digit from 0 to 9 and contemplate the tone it possesses, not as a rigid label or a fixed fate, but as a call to greater self-awareness. Each digit provides a mirror, a method for understanding how archetypal energy might be manifesting through your habits, your timing, and your deepest self. Before we start, let's be unequivocal. You are not a number. Jung would never reduce the immensity of a soul to a single symbol and label it as truth. But he might suggest, observe the symbol. It is trying to communicate something to you. Because symbolic thinking isn't about constraining your identity. It's about broadening your consciousness. So ask yourself, where does this pattern already exist within me? What aspects of my soul appear to mirror this tone? And how can I live more consciously in harmony with it? This journey is not about foretelling the future. It is about gaining perspective. And it's not about altering who you are. It's about comprehending what has always been inside you, waiting to be acknowledged, seen, and valued. When we open our perceptions to the symbolic language of time, we start to see the invisible framework beneath our lives. We start to navigate rather than simply drift. You don't need to believe in the supernatural to believe in significance. And you don't need to have all the answers to evolve. Sometimes you just need to pose the right questions. So take a breath, look kindly at your own life's timeline, and ask, what has this number, this quiet digit, been attempting to whisper to my soul all this time? Now let us begin. We start where all things begin and end. Final digit 0. The soul of the beginning and the end. To be born in a year that concludes with 0 is to carry a sacred vibration, one that defies linearity, the conventional and the anticipated. 0 is not merely a number. It is a paradox, a circle, with no start and no finish, a silent resonance in the framework of time. And while the world may perceive it as nothing, the soul knows differently. In ancient spiritual traditions, 0 was venerated not as a void, but as the womb of all existence. It was the silence before the first sound, the inhalation, before the first word. Not absence, but infinite potential. A realm of possibility where anything can be created, where all contradictions merge and dissolve into oneness. Symbolically, 0 is the archetype of the self, as Carl Jung might put it. Not the self as personality, but the self as totality, the wholeness that encompasses both light and shadow, masculine and feminine, conscious and unconscious. Jung frequently used the image of a mandala, a perfect circle, to signify this core of the soul. In this light, 0 is not passive. It is primordial. It is the original foundation of being from which everything arises and to which everything returns. If your birth year ends in 0, you might feel this deep within, even if you have never articulated it. A quiet understanding that life is cyclical, not linear, that advancement is not always straightforward, and that meaning is discovered not in speed but in stillness. You might feel out of sync in a world fixated on direction, on outcomes, on noise, because your soul recalls a deeper cadence. Those born under the tone of 0 frequently possess an inner gravity. They attract others not through performance, but through their presence, through their listening, through their silence. They are often intuitive, reflective, and sensitive to the spaces between things. There is an ageless quality to them, something that transcends personality. Others may find them soothing without understanding why. These are the souls that feel like home, not because they conform, but because they contain. You might embody the archetype of the sage, the mystic, or even the eternal child, not in a sense of immaturity, but in your capacity to remember wonder, the sacred and the unseen. Your energy is often subtle, but it is never vacant. It is the pause that lends music its meaning, the breath that reconnects body to spirit, the soul that remembers our origins and our return. But the journey of 0 is not always smooth. Because this number is so intimately linked to emptiness, its shadow can be profound. You may feel at times as though you do not fit in anywhere, as if you are observing life from a distance, drifting between roles, between desires, between lifetimes. You may suffer from waves of existential yearning or spiritual weariness, a craving for something you cannot articulate. In a world that prizes clarity, identity, and ceaseless activity, this hunger can feel like a failing. But it is not a failing. It is a summons. The emptiness you perceive is not a void. It is a signal, a sacred unease that directs you inward. Your soul is not broken. It is deep, and it is prompting you to have faith in the wisdom of stillness, to value the places where others hurry by, to recognize that beginnings and endings are never truly distinct, but are elements of the same breath. When you embrace the energy of 0, you become something uncommon, a custodian of sacred space, someone who does not just act, but also holds, someone who does not just move, but also aligns. You become the person others turn to when life no longer makes sense, because you carry the quiet recollection that meaning was never located in noise, but in the stillness beneath it. You may not always be understood, and that is acceptable. You were not born to be loud. You were born to be authentic, to be whole, to remember what the world has forgotten. In Jung's symbolic lexicon, you embody the image of the self, not the divided ego, but the deep center where all things meet. Your presence is circular, your life is a spiral, and your soul is a mirror, reminding others not of who they ought to become, but of what they already are. If this is your number, then you are not here to pursue the path. You are here to notice when one concludes and another quietly starts. Final digit 1. The soul that dares to begin to be born in a year ending in 1 is to carry in your soul the spark of origin, a force that doesn't ask for permission, but instead steps forward into the unknown. While 0 signifies the sacred stillness before creation, 1 is the flame that ignites it, the courageous initiation of a journey never undertaken before. Symbolically, the number 1 is the archetype of beginnings, of emergence, of individuality in its most unrefined state. In Jungian terms, it represents the initial moment the soul emerges from the collective shadow and starts to form its own identity. It is the energy of separation, not as an act of rejection, but as an essential process of self-discovery. Those whose birth year ends in 1 frequently sense this energy from a young age. They may perceive a subtle friction between who they are supposed to be and who they genuinely are. There is a quiet impulse to define themselves apart from roles, labels, or conventions. Whether they are introverted or outgoing, their soul often whispers, "I must find my own path." Carl Jung taught that genuine transformation necessitates individuation, the journey of becoming your unique self, separate from the masses and aware of your inner truth. The number 1 embodies this very impulse, the urge to start, to lead, to declare, "This hasn't been done yet, but I will do it." If you were born under this number, your soul likely resonates with the pioneer, the trailblazer, or the initiator archetype. You are drawn to new ideas. You may challenge existing systems, and you probably resist anything that requires unthinking conformity. And while this can be a wonderful gift, it can also be isolating. Because every initiation involves separation, the shadow of 1 is not darkness but solitude, the fear that if you follow your own path, you will be by yourself, that if you lead, no one will come with you. This fear can lead you to self-protection, to excessive control, to the draining conviction that you have to do everything on your own. And yet the reality is the opposite. Your journey is not meant to be solitary. It is archetypal. It calls you to lead, yes, but not from your ego, from your soul. Jung cautioned that when the ego becomes overblown, it loses sight of its role as just one part of the greater self. For those under the vibration of 1, this inflation can manifest as an over-identification with being the first, the best, or the sole person capable. This is not arrogance. It is fear cloaked in armor. The healing occurs when you grasp that authentic leadership starts with inner alignment, that being a pioneer doesn't require having all the solutions, but rather having the bravery to take the initial step, even if your voice trembles. When integrated, the energy of 1 becomes profoundly inspiring. You transform into someone who opens doors not only for yourself but for others as well. You do not insist that people follow you. You simply demonstrate that they too can begin. You become the flicker of light that others see in themselves. If this is your number, your soul holds the wisdom of creative bravery. You are not here to imitate. You are not here to conform. You are here to spark new journeys, to give birth to new concepts, to initiate transformation. Not through coercion, but through authentic being. And perhaps most significantly, you are not here to prove your worth. You are here to be yourself. Let the fire inside you burn, not to consume, but to enlighten. Let your steps be imperfect, uncertain, and courageous, and understand that every time you prioritize authenticity over approval, you are honoring your soul's profound truth. In a world of sameness, you are the testament that something new is always achievable, not just for you, but for everyone who has the courage to follow their own light. Final digit 2. The soul that feels in pairs to be born in a year, that concludes with a 2, is to bear the sacred mark of duality, the interplay between the self and the other, between the inner world and its outer manifestation. While the energy of 1 is about individuality and initiation, 2 is drawn toward connection, reflection, and resonance. It is the moment the soul starts to realize that it is not by itself. This is not the energy of control, but of harmony, not the compulsion to lead, but the wish to attune. In symbolic language, 2 is the mirror that reflects back, that takes in nuance, that perceives what is left unsaid. It is the archetype of the lover, the peacemaker, the empath, a soul designed for relationships, for intimacy, and for emotional profundity. Individuals born under this vibration frequently sense the emotional atmosphere of a room before a single word is uttered. From an early age, they may have been aware of how others felt, sometimes with more clarity than they understood their own internal states. These are the children who adapted with ease, who comforted others, who became what was necessary to maintain connection. For them, harmony was not a preference, it was a means of survival. Jung often spoke of the anima and animus, the feminine and masculine principles present in all of us. Those influenced by the number 2 typically have a heightened awareness of this inner polarity. They search for union, not only in romance but also spiritually. A deep longing exists within them to be completely seen, to connect with another in a manner that makes the soul feel understood at its very core. It is a beautiful desire, but also a precarious one. Because the shadow of 2 is self-neglect, in the process of reaching for the other, they can lose track of themselves. Their gift of empathy can turn into a wound when it is directed only outward, when they muffle their own voice to maintain peace or absorb the emotional burdens of others without setting boundaries. The soul, under the sway of 2, must master the art of turning back inward, of listening not just to others but to the rhythm within, of respecting their own needs, wants, and truths, even if it disturbs the veneer of harmony. Jung might advise, your purpose is not to dissolve into love, but to bring your complete self to it. When this archetype is properly integrated, something radiant appears. These people become conduits between hearts, able to see both perspectives without being overwhelmed by either. They are natural diplomats, counselors, poets, and healers, not because they mend others, but because their presence helps people feel held, secure, and understood. Their power is not in control, but in compassion, not in volume, but in depth. They remind the world that feeling is not a weakness, but a form of wisdom, that vulnerability, when grounded in self-awareness, becomes a potent force for connection. If your soul was born under the number 2, listen to this. You are not weak because you care. You are strong because you feel. Your desire for union is not a defect. It is a sacred compass guiding you toward what is authentic. But do not forget that genuine union does not come from a place of emptiness. It starts when 2 whole souls decide to meet, not to make each other complete, but to stand together in truth. So speak, feel, and connect, but do not vanish. The world needs your heart, but it also needs your boundaries, because when you respect both, you become what you were always intended to be, a sanctuary in motion. Final digit 3, the soul that dances with expression. If you were born in a year ending in 3, your soul likely bears the imprint of movement, of meaning made manifest. This is the number of the sacred spark, where energy doesn't turn inward to conceal itself, but flows outward to connect, express, and transform. While one signals the beginning of identity and 2 looks for reflection through another, 3 gives birth to expression. The soul's urge to speak, to create, to radiate. In symbolic traditions across many cultures, the number 3 is sacred. The Holy Trinity, the triangle, the link between opposites. It is where the joining of 2 creates a third reality, a concept, an image, a vibration. It is creativity in action. In Jungian philosophy, 3 carries the energy of the trickster, the messenger, and the divine child. Not the child in a literal sense, but the archetype of the child who injects renewal, spontaneity, laughter, curiosity, and vitality into a world that has become rigid and weary. It is the one who reminds us of what it feels like to be fully alive. People born under this number often perceive the world in a unique way. They do not merely witness life, they absorb it. Stories, colors, rhythms, symbols. Their souls are attuned to the music that plays beneath the surface. They may be fluent in many languages, not just of words, but of movement, emotion, and metaphor. Even if they are quiet, they exude a magnetic charm, a capacity to make others feel something, anything, everything. They are frequently creators, storytellers, poets, artists, or jesters, not necessarily by trade, but in their core being. There is a feeling that life must be expressed, or it will become stagnant. Their soul doesn't just ponder, "What does this mean?" It asks, "How can I show it? How can I give it a voice?" But this expressive talent comes with a shadow. Because they experience so much, they can become swamped by their own inner landscape. To manage, they might jump from one project to another, one person to another, one moment to another, always in motion, always creating, always entertaining. But beneath it all, a fear may whisper, "If I stop, will I be overwhelmed by what I feel?" Jung would offer this counsel. Genuine communication does not start with an audience, it starts with the self. The soul shaped by 3 must come to understand that silence is not the adversary of expression. It is its sacred source. When expression turns into a performance to avoid inner truth, the soul splinters. But when it is grounded in authenticity, expression becomes a form of alchemy. When integrated, the energy of 3 is luminous. These souls act as translators of the unseen, putting a name to what others cannot articulate, giving form to emotions no one else dares to confront. They show the world that grief can have a rhythm, that joy can be a form of revolution, and that beauty is not a luxury, but a medicine. They are not here to entertain. They are here to awaken. If your birth year ends in 3, your soul may carry the archetype of the messenger, not because you are the loudest, but because your truth pierces through the clamor. You are here to unveil, through words, images, or gestures, the hidden soul of life. But don't forget to direct your voice inward. Speak to yourself, sing into your own quietude, and listen for the part of you that is still awaiting its name. Because when your voice is authentic, it doesn't just communicate, it illuminates. Final digit 4. The soul that builds what lasts. To be born in a year that concludes with a 4 is to possess the soul of an architect, not of physical structures, but of internal frameworks. While 3 flows unrestrained and expresses itself outwardly, 4 establishes foundations. It pursues stability, responsibility, and significance through structure. Carl Jung frequently delved into the symbolism of the number 4 in sacred geometry and mandalas. To him, it signified the manifested completeness of the material realm. The 4 elements, the 4 cardinal points, the 4 seasons, the 4 functions of consciousness. 4 is not disorderly. It is the square, the pillar, the compass that gives direction to transformation. Those born under this number may not seek the spotlight, but they are often the silent anchors in their surroundings, the ones who construct, safeguard, organize, and create space for others. They are the calm amidst the chaos, the planners, the stabilizers. They make the unseen tangible through consistency, integrity, and presence. There is often a profound sense of duty in these individuals, a feeling that someone needs to keep it all together, and frequently, that someone is them. Even as children, they might have seemed older than their years, taking on emotional duties that others were unable or unwilling to bear, not from a place of pride, but because disorder disturbed something sacred within them. Yet the shadow of this archetype is inflexibility. When the energy of 4 is unconscious, it can manifest as control masquerading as responsibility. It holds on to routines, labels, or beliefs, not because they are still useful, but because they once provided a sense of security. It can be afraid of change, spontaneity, and surrender. Jung would remind us that structure should serve the soul, not stifle it. The task of the 4th soul is to learn that adaptability is not a weakness, it is wisdom. Strong foundations must be able to breathe. Safety is not found in resisting change, but in consciously aligning with it. When this archetype is integrated, the person becomes not just a builder of systems, but a preserver of peace, someone who fosters an environment where others can thrive, someone whose presence offers both order and gentleness. They embody the rare kind of strength that can bend without snapping. If you were born under the tone of 4, remember this: you are not here to carry everything for everyone. You are not here to fix the world by yourself. Your strength is sacred, but your softness is what makes it complete. You are not the wall. You are the one who understands how to build doors where others only perceive boundaries. Final digit 5. The soul of sacred change to be born in a year. Ending in 5 is to carry the soul of a transformer, one who is unable to remain static, not due to agitation, but because life is constantly beckoning you onward. The number 5 is the symbol of movement, curiosity, and evolution. In many mystical traditions, it is positioned at the center of the digits 1 through 9, creating a balance between the stability of 4 and the disruption of 6. It is the bridge connecting comfort and chaos, and those born under its influence often reside right on that precipice. In Jungian terms, this number resonates with the archetypes of the explorer, the rebel, or the initiate, the soul that endures numerous deaths and rebirths within a single lifetime. These individuals frequently undergo profound internal transformations, altering their paths, beliefs, relationships, and identities, not from a place of confusion, but because staying the same feels like spiritual stagnation. They are shapeshifters indeed, but not for the purpose of deception. They shift because the soul within them is vibrant, and life requires authenticity in the present moment. They are often brave, audacious, and unwilling to accept anything that feels inauthentic or stagnant. But the shadow of 5 is instability. When this energy lacks grounding, it can devolve into restlessness without purpose, change for the sake of change, and escapism posing as freedom. These souls might pursue the next new experience or reinvent themselves before their roots have a chance to take hold. They may mistake stillness for stagnation and run from the very discomfort that would lead to growth. Jung might suggest that these individuals represent the individuation process itself, a continuous cycle of facing the unknown, shedding old selves and becoming new. But he would also caution that individuation is not about escaping, it's about remaining present during the transformation. When integrated, the 5 becomes a guide through change, a beacon for what is possible. These souls do not just evolve, they invite others to join them in evolution. They introduce innovation, adaptability, and a breath of fresh air into environments that have become too rigid. If your birth year ends in 5, hear this. You are not flawed because you never remain the same. You are in a constant state of becoming. You are never meant to reach a final destination. You are here to awaken the world through your own becoming. And while you may never settle down in a conventional sense, you can always find your roots in your own center, so that your change is not a flight from yourself, but a deeper journey back to who you truly are. Final digit 6. The soul that protects what is sacred. To be born in a year that concludes with a 6 is to possess the soul of a guardian, someone instinctively drawn to nurture, protect, and stay present when others have left. 6 is the number of devotion, of love in motion, of holding things together not for recognition, but because the heart cannot let go. In Jungian symbolism, this number brings to mind the archetype of the caretaker, the protector, or even the sacred heart, the one who gives without expecting anything in return, who appears even when exhausted, who becomes the quiet, emotional foundation for the lives of others. From a young age, those born under this number often feel a sense of emotional responsibility. They are the ones who provide comfort, who stabilize situations, who sense what others require before it is voiced. People are drawn to them, confide in them, and open up to them. Their warmth fosters a kind of unspoken security. But the gift of care, when out of balance, turns into a burden. The shadow of 6 is excessive responsibility. These souls may lose their sense of self in others. They may carry emotional burdens that were never theirs to begin with. They might stay too long, give too much, or mistake love for self-sacrifice. Jung would remind us that the journey to wholeness must include oneself. The soul shaped by 6 must learn that setting boundaries is an act of love, not of separation, and that pouring from a depleted cup benefits no one. When integrated, this soul becomes not a martyr, but a true protector, someone who remains rooted in compassion without forsaking themselves, someone who can say yes out of love and no out of wisdom. If your final digit is 6, remember this. You are not here to carry the sorrows of everyone. You are here to hold on to what is truly important, beginning with your own heart. You are not a prisoner of love. You are its sanctuary. Final digit 7. The soul that seeks what lies beneath. To be born in a year ending in 7 is to possess the soul of the seeker, one who is never fully satisfied with superficial explanations, who repeatedly turns inward in a search for what is real beneath the clamor. Across symbolic traditions, 7 is the number of mystery, of inner truth, and of spiritual awakening. Jung might describe this energy through the archetype of the hermit, the visionary, or the philosopher, the one who ventures into the unconscious, not to flee from life, but to comprehend it. People with this imprint often feel like silent observers. They notice what others overlook and question what others take for granted. Even in their childhood, they may have possessed a kind of quiet profundity, contemplative, intuitive, and emotionally perceptive. They are frequently captivated by psychology, dreams, mysticism, or the hidden dimensions of reality. But the gift of introspection is accompanied by its shadow. The 7th soul can become isolated, lost in thought, and detached from the body and the present moment. In their quest for meaning, they might forget to live. In their search for truth, they might overlook the beauty of the everyday. Jung would say that wisdom must be embodied and insight must be lived. The 7 is not intended to hide from the world. It is meant to come back to it, transformed, carrying something that only they could discover. When integrated, these individuals become like lighthouses, providing guidance not through coercion, but through quiet clarity. They help others recall what is important. They continue to ask questions in a world preoccupied with answers. If your number is 7, you are not here to retreat. You are here to reveal what is hidden beneath illusion and to return not as an outsider to life, but as its most profound witness. Final digit 8. The soul that transforms pressure into power, to be born in a year that concludes with an 8, is to carry the energy of transmutation. 8 is the number of power, mastery, karma, and consequence. It doesn't merely dream, it builds. It doesn't just feel, it acts. But underneath that power lies something sacred, the calling to turn pain into purpose. In symbolic terms, 8 is often connected to the alchemist, the one who works with the raw materials of life, including the shadow, and forges something of enduring worth. People born under this number frequently go through intense cycles of collapse and renewal. They are not intimidated by the dark because their soul understands that it contains gold. These individuals often take on leadership roles, not always by official title, but by their very presence. There is a weightiness to them, a sense of depth. They are drawn to making an impact, creating structure, and affecting change. They want to leave something tangible behind, not just for their ego, but because their soul desires a legacy. But the shadow of 8 is the misuse of power. It can manifest as control, emotional repression, or overcompensation. The fear of vulnerability might lead them to shield their hearts. The drive to succeed might overshadow the need to feel. Jung would remind this soul that power not grounded in self-awareness becomes perilous. True strength is never about domination. It is about integration. When this energy is in balance, 8 becomes a catalyst for transformation. These are the people who shift systems, uplift others, and build from a foundation of wholeness. They don't simply pursue success. They become the very remedy they once sought. If your digit is 8, hear this: you are not here to conquer. You are here to transmute. Let your fire not scorch, but refine. Final digit 9. The soul that knows how to release. To be born in a year ending in 9 is to carry the soul of completion. The wisdom that recognizes all things must come to an end, and that letting go is not a weakness, but a sacred strength. 9 is the last number before the cycle begins anew. It contains the wisdom of every number that has come before it. Jung might link this to the archetype of the wounded healer, the elder, or the spiritual midwife, the one who creates a space for grief, transformation, and rebirth. People born under this number often feel wise beyond their years. They possess emotional depth and are frequently drawn to themes of loss, healing, and transition, not because they are morbid, but because they perceive with clarity that beauty is ephemeral and that truth is discovered in surrender. They may reinvent themselves multiple times, shedding roles, identities, and beliefs like a second skin. In doing so, they assist others in grieving, letting go, and starting over. But the shadow of 9 is an over-identification with suffering. These souls may hold onto pain long after it has fulfilled its purpose. They might find it difficult to ask for assistance or believe that their role is to always be strong for others. Sometimes they carry burdens that are no longer theirs to bear. Jung would remind this soul that wholeness does not equate to endless self-sacrifice. It means understanding when to let go. The path of the 9 is not solely about closure. It's about integration. When embraced, this number becomes a beacon of compassion and truth. These souls help others confront what is painful with dignity, with courage, and with love. They remind the world that endings can also be sacred. If your number is 9, remember, you are not here to carry the weight of everything. You are here to teach the world how to release with grace. You are not the end. You are the bridge to what comes next. Most of us journey through life without ever questioning the minor details, like the last digit of our birth year. But Carl Jung taught us that nothing is ever truly without reason. Symbols communicate, numbers whisper, and when we take a moment to listen, we might hear the soul's call. This digit is not your destiny. It is not a definition. But it could be a key to your inner rhythm, to the quiet yearnings you have always held, to the invisible narratives woven into your journey. You are not a number. But maybe, just maybe, your number has been trying to show you who you have been all along. And now that you have seen it, what will you do with what your soul has remembered?